Oh, are we on?
Yeah,
Sorry, I was just holding up my Kentucky notes from last season. I apologize for that. Um,
38-1.
Not 40 and 0. Yeah, I'm still need to get a new T-shirt. But welcome back, everybody, to another Hoops HD podcast. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, here for the SEC uh, preseason preview, joined by our cast of characters, John Titel. First, let's start with you. How are you doing? How are you doing this evening?
Good. Very excited to discuss the Kentucky Invitational Conference. I mean, the SEC.
We've also got our other John S. with us. And how's that 40-0 T-shirt that you have from last year doing, John?
Oh, makes for a good rag here.
um, yeah,
They didn't have one in my size.
They didn't have one in your size. Well, David
No.
David Griggs is with us as well, as we were discussing one of his favorite conferences because Missouri is in it, correct?
I hate this conference.
And we also have Joby Fortson with us. Joby, how are you doing?
I'm still recovering. After Duke won the first semifinal game, all I needed was 40-0 to happen for me to win a 1,000-person pool. Yeah. It didn't happen.
Well, no, it did not happen. Wisconsin happened to Kentucky last year, and as a result, for second year in a row, Kentucky, actually third year in a row now, Kentucky did not win the national championship. If they don't do it this year, there
They're
could be
gonna
some kids
fire
graduating
Cal.
from Kentucky without having seen their team win a national championship, and you got to feel bad for them.
It's just, if you go 38-1 and make the Final Four, if my team ever did that, I'd be drunk for a month. Instead, I'm just drunk for a month anyway. But like, that's like that would be the most amazing thing ever. Yet Kentucky, it was a failure.
Yeah, if my team made the NCAA tournament, I'd be drunk for a month. So, but let's actually talk about this coming up, this season upcoming here, and this Kentucky team. They are one of the top teams in the country, number one or number two in a lot of the polls that are out there already. Despite losing 7 players to the NBA draft, but that's kind of business as usual for Coach Cal, isn't it? John T, you're nodding your head a little bit there. This Kentucky team, they just reloaded this year, didn't they?
Yes, there are some teams that have to rebuild. All Kentucky does is reload. Everybody knows about they always bring in the McDonald's All-Americans, and this year is no different with the likes of Murray and Briscoe and everyone else. The thing that people might forget is the senior on a Kentucky team. He's actually good. He's not just somebody who's there to help out with the GPA or whatever. Alex Poitras, former 2012 McDonald's All-American. He played in a title game, lost to UConn in 2014, missed most of last year after tearing his ACL. Calipari is obviously Calipari, one of the best coaches, if not best recruiter in the nation. I don't know if you can bank them for the Final Four like we have in years past, but they have enough talent and another brutal schedule, but enough talent to give it a good shot.
Right, and
So in other words, we can actually have a Senior Day celebration down in Lexington.
Which is strange.
a single for a single senior, yeah. And maybe was it almost a blessing in disguise off of last year with Poitras going down? Not that they really needed him last season. I don't know that they still would have won that game if they'd had him, but he might not be here this year if he hadn't gone down with the injury. Joby, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think having Poitras back is actually very nice. It adds to what they were kind of doing last year, which was it wasn't all freshmen last year. It was all sophomores, but you had your Cauley Steins, your Harrisons, who were not freshmen that actually I think helped make that team great. The key to this team, we know the Murrays of the world are going to be talented, but can the glue pieces, Poitras being one, Tyler Ulis being two, they are where I think Kentucky will be either number one and doing what they seem to do every year and be a threat to win it all, or will it just be a very good team? That's the fulcrum, are those two players.
Right, and if those two players could help guys like Labissiere, if I'm pronouncing his name rightly, Briscoe and Murray, and just incredible crop of freshmen that, again, Coach Calipari brought in, the sky might be the limit here. David, am I going to be able to pull out a 40-0 T-shirt, or is it not quite that good this year?
They're not quite that good. But the SEC might be that bad.
that
No.
bad. You're not a big fan of the SEC this year, then?
No, I actually am, but I'm just so used to trashing it that old habits are hard to break.
Well, I'll tell you that normally when we're talking the SEC beyond Kentucky, we're talking Florida, we're talking maybe Ole Miss, we're talking. I don't know that we'll be talking the same normal teams this year, but I think there are 3 or 4 other really good teams in this SEC. John S., let me throw it out to you. Who do you think your second best team in the SEC is? Because I think we'd all agree Kentucky's the best.
I think Vanderbilt, after being outside the radar for a couple of years, could be poised to finish as high as second this year. And then when they go out of conference, they'll also be in the Maui Invitational. They're going to Baylor. They host Dayton. They go to Purdue and also go to Texas as part of the Big 12 and SEC Challenge.
That's a good point. This Vanderbilt team, I think you're starting to hear a lot about them from media types and the like. People do like this Vandy team. They have, I guess, the dean of SEC coaches here in Kevin Stallings. And on top of that, you throw in you got Damian Jones and Luke Cornett, 7 feet tall, who could shoot a 3-pointer. And they come off a 21-win season, even though they were not an NCAA tournament team. David, do you like this Vanderbilt team, or do you think it may be overrated heading into the season with all we're hearing about it?
I do like them, and I don't think they're overrated, but I am surprised they're ranked as they are. Vanderbilt was somebody that I think we kind of identified at the end of last year or over the summer as a team we thought of as like, man, they're going to be good next year. They're going to be a dark horse. But at what point is it – I don't know at what point a team stops being a dark horse. I think it's funny that people are still naming Vanderbilt as their dark horse. If you're everyone's dark horse, you're no longer a dark horse. And I think that's where Vandy is. They're ranked in the 20s. I realize that preseason rankings don't really mean much of anything, but that's about where I think they are, that good or better. They're good. They're real good. They're not. I don't think they're going to be as good as Kentucky, but they're good.
And they'll truly have one of the unique home courts in all of college basketball every year.
We may need to a podcast later this season dedicated to the Vanderbilt home court, and because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they
absolutely ridiculous.
But let's keep moving through the SEC and throw another team that I think is a bit maybe more considered a sleeper or dark horse. Let me throw it over to John T. I think you know what team I'm referring to here. I'll let you talk about them.
South Carolina. I'm kidding.
Missouri.
I think LSU is my sleeper. Everybody knows about the hotshot freshman coming in, Ben Simmons. He's the second freshman to ever be named SEC preseason player of the year, which he hasn't played a single game. Who knows? Not rookie of the year, player of the year in the conference. We'll see. He was great on the summer tour. I believe they went to Australia, and he averaged like 20 and 9 a game. So he's for real, but that is certainly high praise. They also have Blakeney helping him out as the other hotshot freshman. They add them to a solid core, the backcourt at least. They need help up front, which is why he's a good fit. They got Keith Hornsby, Josh Gray, Tim Quarterman. These are guys who they almost beat NC State in the tourney last year. They had a 1-point loss in the second-round game. Johnny Jones, in only his 4th year on the sideline, there's so many new coaches in the SEC. I think that's going to give them at least a leg up just because even only 4 years, he's got an advantage in experience over a lot of guys he's going to be facing this year. The non-conference schedule is a little tough, but not too bad. NC State and Oklahoma, nothing too bad to worry about. I think this is a 20-win team, and depending upon if Simmons is the next coming, this team could win a couple games in March, I think.
You didn't even mention Craig Victor, who came over from your school there, either.
He's dead to me.
Okay. Arizona transfer there, playing for LSU this year. Let me throw it to David. David, do you agree with John T. about this LSU team being a type of team that can actually advance? Talking second week into the tournament, good.
I think that's definitely their ceiling. I don't want to say that I think it's impossible. I'll put it this way. Can they get past the first weekend into the Sweet 16? Yes, of course, if the matchups are right. I wouldn't go so far as to rank them in the top 16, though. I don't see them landing on the 4 line or better. But who knows? Everybody starts at 0.
Joby, let me bring you back in here with regard to another team that I think I've heard a lot talk about, and that's this Texas A&M team. Another team that maybe wasn't a big team last year in terms of how they performed, but people are talking about this team as being a solid NCAA tournament caliber team.
Well, they were inside the bubble with 3 games to go, and they just, it's the old line from Copland. You had your shot and you blew it. I mean, it was just remarkable.
It was spectacular.
I think people are looking. I think a lot of people are looking to that because they had him, especially the bubble prognosticator Lunardi types, because they were on the tip of the tongue. I'm not sold on them. I think could they be a tournament team? Sure. This talk of a lot of people putting them second in the league? No.
Who's doing
that? I don't see it. I think they're going to muddle along.
Whoa.
I think they're going to muddle along, and they're going to it's going to be a ho-hum situation. And, yeah, they might make the tournament, but they're going to be one of those boring, should they be in the round of 12? I'm not sold on the Aggies at all.
Well, we seem to be having a couple of problems again with Joby's feed there. We'll get that cleared. Hopefully, get that cleared up. But let me bring David. Let me bring you back in here also with a couple other teams within the SEC. We have some new coaches in the SEC.
Yeah.
And is there any particular team that has a new coach that you're looking at as having a good season this year? We're talking the Mississippi States, the Floridas, the Alabamas, Tennessee.
It's very curious. I love Ben Howland as a coach. I just think that he has so much work to do at Mississippi State. It's not going to be happening this year. I mean, they have some really good new players there, but I don't see them being tournament good this year. Florida, I like Mike White. This is an interesting story. I realized that he was the coach Florida really wanted. I think some people were surprised by the hire. He wasn't the top of the list of a lot of people in the media were saying they thought Florida was going to do, but he was, I think, Florida's top choice. He's very submerged into the recruiting circles down there. But I don't know, like, as much as I liked him at Louisiana Tech, and this was a program that was just dead to the world, and he had them right on the bubble his second to last year, and they had another good year last year. I just don't see him necessarily. I expect Florida to make the NCAA tournament. They have a ton of talent, but I don't think they're going to contend for a league title the way that many of Donovan's teams did. And Avery Johnson, I just don't know. The college game is so much different from the program. A coach at the pro level isn't so much of a coach as they are a manager. They're not really teaching and working on individual skills and setting up offense. It's just a lot different in college. He could turn out to be the greatest coach ever, but I wouldn't go so far to say that I expect him to do well immediately right away.
Well, let me throw it back to Joby, who I think has got him fixed back in here. On both this Florida and the Alabama teams that David just mentioned, you've got some Alabama connections, I think. So your thoughts on where they're going?
Alabama by marriage, but that also allows me to hear some things. What I've heard about Avery Johnson is he's really hit the AAU circuit with full throttle. Sometimes these pro coaches do not do that. Sometimes they don't understand the recruitment side. I think Avery Johnson's going to do very well over time recruiting. And remember what type of pro coach he was. He was a defensive first guy who I felt like actually of all the coaches had the ability to go to fundamentals. Avery Johnson could be that great fit that David was referring to. We'll see. He's going to have some time to do it. Alabama is more focused on another sport. If you've been paying attention to the Tide lately, on to Florida.
Yeah.
Gymnastics best in the country.
Yeah.
But the women's softball too. But on Florida, yes, the loss of Donovan is so huge because I do think Donovan was such a great coach that would rise above even his talent. But when we talk talent, it's nothing but 5-stars sitting there in the starting lineup. Dorian Finney-Smith was the next coming when he's come out. He's a good player. All these guys, you give White, who did not have that talent, Louisiana Tech,
not quite. No, not quite.
Yeah, I think he is going to actually turn them into a solid tournament team. And we talked Vanderbilt. Are they the sleeper in the conference? Well, when you return seven of your top eight scorers are all sophomores and freshmen from last year, it's not much of a sleeper. Florida's the one that's being overlooked as a sleeper team, not to challenge Kentucky, but to make a high finishing position in the conference.
Well, let me bring John S. back in here. John, is there anybody else in this conference, whether they have a new coach or not, that you're also looking at as being a tournament caliber team? We've discussed obviously LSU, Vanderbilt, A&M, and Florida as potential tournament teams.
I'm not sure they're going to be a tournament team this year, but I'll be interested to see how Ben Howland does in his first season at Mississippi State. No longer has the pressures that he had at UCLA or even to a lesser extent Pitt while he was building up that program. He does have an easy schedule to get into SEC play this year.
By pressures, you mean he doesn't have Bill Walton talking about how he needs to go.
But he will have cowbells to deal with.
God.
Well, let me turn to our other John T. here. How about this Georgia team? I don't think I've heard anybody really talk much about them, but they've got a pretty solid backcourt. Now, Marcus Thornton is gone, so they've got some problems down low, but do you think Georgia can challenge for a tournament bid this year?
They can. I think that some of the other tourney teams from last year, like an Arkansas or an Ole Miss, might take a downturn, while Kentucky and LSU should still be right there. Georgia was great last year. Their backcourt, I don't think it's solid. I think it's fantastic. Charles Mann, Kenny Gaines, J.J. Frazier, these guys get to the postseason, and then they score 15 or 20 points once they get there. They played a tough Spartan team and only lost them by 7 points.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. Mark Fox has been to 5 tourneys during his time between Nevada and Georgia. The schedule looks decent. They play Seton Hall, Blah, Clemson, Blah. Baylor will be tough. I could see Georgia squeaking out 20 wins and getting in there.
Yeah, they've also got a couple freshmen. This Turtle Jackson and Derek Beatty, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, that I think could be significant contributors there as well at Georgia.
I do like Georgia a lot. I think they're a tournament team again.
Now, last season, heading into the year, I said that Bruce Pearl in his first season at Auburn would have his team on the bubble, and he was better, I think, than most people thought they would be, but they were not quite there.
Chad, you had them on the 9 line in your preseason bracket. It was spectacularly.
It was a very big bubble. Now, Simeon Bowers is back, and he was one of the reasons I liked this Auburn team last year a lot, and he really came through. He was a junior college transfer. Bruce Pearl is bringing in another big JC transfer this year. Junior College Player of the Year, T.J. Dunnins. Kareem Canty coming over from Marshall. Could Bruce Pearl actually contend for the tournament this season? Joby, you?
Could they? Of course. I'm actually with you on. I think Bruce Pearl is a heck of a coach. The additions are typical Bruce Pearl. I mean, JUCO, Marshall transfer. I mean, it's while they lose KT Harrell, who I'm actually very familiar with, being a Virginia transfer. I don't think that's a ridiculous loss, even though you're walking out with 17 points departing. Could they? Yeah, I think this is the year where maybe. I'm not going to put them on a 9 line, but but could they be in the real bubble talk? Yes, and it's for the same reason John T. mentioned earlier on Georgia. You're going to see some teams like Arkansas, etc., fall back, and somebody's got to get those wins somewhere, and Auburn is one of those teams who I think will take some of those wins.
I really think that, that Bruce Pearl is going to get this team there, and they're going to become a legitimate power at some point here in the next few years, like he did with Tennessee. He's got to throw a lot of barbecues to get there, but we won't get into that.
But they did give us a good sneak preview in the SEC tournament last year of the future to lie ahead.
Exactly. That's another reason why I like this team so much. John S., let me throw this back to you. It's a team that I know you want to discuss a little bit. You're a bit of a fan of their head coach, and that's South Carolina. They did bring in P.J. Dozier. It's supposed to be something special there as a recruit. Thornwell and Notice back, but any chance of South Carolina being a tournament bubble type of team this year?
Well, they'll have a chance to rack up plenty of wins in the non-conference slate this year. They go to the Paradise Jam, which will also feature Florida State and a few mid-level teams. They also have their annual game with in-state rival Clemson, and they also play St. John's in Memphis before they go into their SEC gauntlets.
Those are all victories, in other words, other than the Florida State game.
No different than what Rick Barnes used to do annually at Clemson.
Speaking of Rick Barnes, he's the one new head coach in the SEC we have not touched on yet. And let me bring John T. back in here on this Tennessee team. What are your thoughts about Tennessee getting Rick Barnes, who's now their third head coach in 3 years, which is not a good thing for a program to do? But have they finally found their guy?
Depends on what they want of their guy. If they want the winningest coach in Texas history and a guy who's been to the Final Four and had success at Clemson and Providence and George Mason, then yeah, they found their guy. If they want a guy who's going to win immediately, I think that he's capable. I don't think this is the team. I think it's going to be a couple of years. They have a couple of seniors in Kevin Punter and Armani Moore, but I think the cupboard's a little bare. I know David's really looking forward to their game against Nebraska. It should be quite the battle there.
So much so, yeah. But I agree with that. I think this is actually I think after a couple of whiffs, I actually really liked Quanzo Martin. I don't think Tennessee fans appreciated him at all, when in reality he was pretty good. Look at what he's doing out at Cal. And but what happened with his name is slipping. I know he's from Ole Miss. He looked like a Hobbit.
Donnie Tyndall.
Yeah, Donnie Tyndall. Thank you, Hobbit Donnie Tyndall. It was just spectacularly hilarious.
David, let me stick with you here because I want to discuss another team that I know you like, and that's the Missouri Tigers, who were so big bringing in Kim Anderson, and he was going to, come in and be the answer to everything. A mistake? Is that showing to be yet, or where are we?
Well, Mizzou had a rich history. They had natural rivals in the Big 8 and the Big 12 with Kansas and Nebraska, Iowa State. Last year, Missouri's basketball team reached a point to where if it were a sled dog, it would have been shot. It's just awful, and it's going to be worse this year. There is just... It's not that they're going through a rebuilding mode. It's that the house has been down and the builders aren't even there. It's just a complete mess.
Is there hope here?
No.
Or do you think... are you saying that the Kim Anderson hire was a mistake then?
I actually like Kim Anderson. I don't know... I was a little surprised that they were as bad as they were, but they just don't have the players or anybody. They might want to consider other options.
And you wonder why Frank Haith went to Tulsa a couple of years ago?
Oh, Frank.
Maybe we have the answer now because Frank Haith may have a pretty good team this year at Tulsa. But, Jovi, let me throw it back to you here. On another team we did not discuss yet, and that's this Ole Miss team. They did get in the tournament last year. They were in the play-in game or the first four, whatever you want to call it. 6 players are gone from that team. Only Stephon Moody's the significant player that is back.
Moody's back. And this isn't like, we referenced LSU having Simmons. Oh, Simmons, is he the one-man show? And John T. pointed out why LSU is good, because they have pieces around them. They have a backcourt who's solid. Moody doesn't have that. Moody might lead the conference in scoring because if he doesn't score, who else will? for them. And you just got to think any major team is going to score 40 points a game. So it's a situation. It's down. It's definitely a downtime at Ole Miss. When we talk about teams that might get wins, like Auburn, I referenced Auburn earlier, that will be taking some steps forward. Vanderbilt, Auburn. They come out of teams like Ole Miss and another team that we've yet to mention out of Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Well, let's go right there with that Fayetteville, Arkansas team. You want to talk about a team that won, I believe, 27 games last year, a solid NCAA tournament team, and I think one or two reserves that got a little bit of time are back, but their entire starting lineup is gone. John T.
Is suggesting that's problematic?
Yeah, well, exactly. Is this going to be a problem for Arkansas this year? And how bad of a problem?
Big problem. The thing I want to see most is the coaches against players scrimmage for the Razorbacks. You got Mike Anderson, who was a great player back in the day. You got Melvin Watkins, who played back in the day at Charlotte. They got Lee Mayberry, who I believe was in the Final Four in 1990 with the Razorbacks. They got Scotty Thurman, who made the three-pointer to beat Duke. Like, their coaching staff is going to give their players a run for the money.
Maybe the coaching staff should just play the game.
They should take on coaches at Marquette.
That should have been their exhibition.
All they need is the big nasty, and they got for the inside game, and they're ready to go.
Let me throw a couple other things out here. Joby mentioned the amount of points that are going to be scored there in Ole Miss by Stefan Moody. Who do we think is the best player in the, first of all, player of the year in the SEC this year? Joby, do you have thoughts on that? Do you think Moody can actually win the league?
You know what? Let's look at. I'm going to be boring and look at the two at Kentucky. One of the freshmen either might jump out, or does Tyler Ulis just go off? I really like Tyler Ulis. I mean, he has the chance to be something special. If they're running at an undefeated rate in the conference, which could be very likely a result, even in a what they did last year, I think you got to look to Lexington for your player of the year.
Right. And John T., do we also look to Lexington for the freshman of the year, or do we look at LSU, or do we look somewhere else?
Yeah. We look to LSU or Kentucky. It could be a daily double where the rookie of the year is good enough to be the player of the year. As far as Moody, to pick up on what Joby said, I think he might not just lead the conference in scoring, but also steals and three-pointers. He does it all. As far as a rookie, I think Simmons is the odds-on favorite. Labissiere is certainly right there. I think after you survive an earthquake in Haiti, that the SEC is not really that much of a challenge for you. But the guy I'm looking at who's new to the scene is Jamal Murray, the other Kentucky freshman.
Yeah.
In a win on Monday night over Ottawa, 1 assist away from a triple-double. I know it's Ottawa, I know it's a scrimmage, but this kid is ready to play right now, it looks like.
Well, in terms of player of the year, if Moody does put up those insane numbers, shouldn't he get some serious consideration, even if he's on a team that finishes sub 500?
He will, but I'm telling you, I think Simmons could be the real deal, and if Simmons averages 20 and 10, which he might, and gets his team to the Sweet 16, which he might, I think that might be enough to overtake Moody, even if Moody gets 20 points a game, 2 steals a game, and 3 threes a game or something.
And they're not going to look at a team, and Ole Miss might be staring at 4-12. That's where I come from that. But you're right, Moody's going to have the stats. I mean, John T's right on the money on it.
Well, I guess you got to say also the voters may be able to hopefully be smart enough to realize that Moody has those stats because there's nobody else on the team that could get those
exactly.
Stats.
Exactly.
But on that note, that does go through all the teams in the SEC. So let's run through here with any final thoughts about the SEC. Let's throw it to John S. first. John, any final thoughts, and how many teams from the SEC do you think will end up in the dance at the end of the day?
I was going to say Ole Miss was an interesting case last year where they were road warriors but had some head-scratching losses at home, but they'll be lucky to win maybe a third or half of their games away from home this year. But I think below Kentucky, there's going to be a lot of parity, lots of teams that could win anywhere from 9 to 12 games, anywhere for Vanderbilt, Tennessee, A&M, LSU, and anybody below. Probably could be a 5-bid conference, maybe 6 if someone steals a bid.
John T., do you agree, disagree?
I do. I think 5 to 6 bids is right around on the money. The other thing that blew me away was just Vanderbilt. I saw it on the crawl tonight that they were preseason, I think, like 17, 18, 19. I follow the sport. I really thought I was looking at a different sport when I saw their name there. Like, I know they have talent, and I know Stallings is good, but, like, I'm stunned that they're a preseason top 20 team.
I didn't realize they were that high. I thought they were in the 20s. Wow. Wow.
David, do you have any other final thoughts and on the number of teams?
As much as I always beat up on this league and say that I don't like this league, I really think that it is a strong league. Maybe not top to bottom because that would imply that Missouri is strong. But I think that it could get 6. Kentucky is really good. Vanderbilt is certainly in the mix. I think LSU is in there. I really think Texas A&M, Georgia are right in there too. And a team that's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year that I actually feel about Auburn this year the way you did last year. I think Auburn is going to be good. The more I look at them, the more I like them. Every year there's a team out there that doesn't get a single vote in either poll and that no one's talking about that is in the rankings before Christmas. I don't know if I like Auburn that much, but I think they're missing a little bit. The coaches, I think, voted them 10th. I think they're a lot better than that. And the other thing, it's like if you take this conference spans all boundaries. Kentucky is ranked number 1 at the top of the conference, and then you have a sub-250 team at the bottom of the conference, or worse, in Missouri.
Joby, any other thoughts on the SEC?
Yeah, I'm actually going to lowball it a little bit. I'm going to say 4 with one of those teams, like even an A&M, being in the play-in game. So 5 with one of them, those 5 being play-in game caliber.
I'd agree. I think it's a 5-bid league. That's what I'm looking at here. LSU, Vandy, A&M, and then the 5th being whether it's an Auburn or a Florida or a Georgia. I'm not as high on Georgia at Florida as some of you are. I'm a lot higher on Auburn. And I would not be surprised here if
high being the key word, 9 seed, Chad.
Yeah, but Mississippi State, I think, would not shock me if Ben Howland has some more success than everybody's thinking he will in his first season. And I really think when it comes to the SEC, my final thought on the conference is they really came out a few years ago, cracked down on non-conference schedules, required every team to submit their non-conference schedule to the league offices in order to boost the conference's RPI, get everybody playing a lot more quality games non-conference. Now you're seeing big-name coaches coming in with the likes of Avery Johnson, Rick Barnes, Ben Howland. I would not be surprised if a few years from now we're talking about a 7 or an 8-bid SEC up there with leagues like the ACC and the Big Ten. But this year again, yeah, I think we're looking at 5. That's a solid number. But on that note, for myself, Chad Sherwood, John T., John S., Joby, and David, I want to thank everybody for joining us again, and we'll be back again real soon with, I believe the next conference up will be the American Athletic Conference. Thanks a lot.